Welcome to the latest show of the Intelligent Wealth podcast. This is our latest episode. This is an interview episode. I'm really delighted to be inviting along a very special guest today, who is Tom Britton, who is a co-founder of Syndicate Room. So welcome to the show today, Tom.
Hi, Tony. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, as usual, we're going to be digging a bit deeper, not just to find out about Syndicate Rooms, but find out a bit more about you and what makes you tick personally, because we find that the listeners really like to know about the person behind the company. Now, one thing I've noticed, Tom, I've only just realized this, that you're only a co-founder of Syndicate Room. You're not the sole founder. So who is the co-founder, and does the co-founder still exist?
He's still alive, yes, but he's no longer with the business. So it's a gentleman by the name of Gonçalo de Vasconcelos, who I met when I was doing my MBA at the Judge Business School in Cambridge.
Right.
I'm very much the co-founder, if you will. The idea initially was Gonçalo's. We met. I've got a product and tech background. He had this idea for creating, at the time, what was an online platform, not a fund or a fund manager, but an online platform for investing in startups. We got to chatting. He liked football. I like football. We got on very well, and we decided to set up the business together. A few years ago, sorry if I'm going too much into it, but a few years ago, we pivoted the business away from the platform to being a fund manager.
Right.
And at that point in time, it made sense to kind of change the leadership team a little bit.
Yes.
So he's no longer with the business anymore in a direct capacity, but we still chat from time to time and keep each other up to date on how things are going.
Excellent. Okay. The reason I found out about your company, Syndicate Room, is because you, as you've alluded to, you used to be a crowdfunder. And I'm always quite interested in these, what were then new concepts of peer-to-peer lending, crowdfunding, and which means you're investing in small startup companies, but you've evolved now to become a fund manager fully in your own right. And in fact, I invested in one of your funds called the AXIS EIS Scheme, which I think is really fabulous. Yeah. Do you want to tell us about some of the benefits of that scheme?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to touch real quickly on the crowdfunding side of it because you did bring it up and talk about that a little bit, just because it does lead to why we did AXIS and the way that we've set it up. So as you alluded to, we were a crowdfunding platform. The model that we created to start was a co-investment model. So even though people could pick and choose which companies they would go into on our platform, all of those companies had to have some form of lead investor involved. And that lead investor could be an angel investor or, say, a seed fund. And so we were always co-investors. And we grew the business around this concept of investing with smarter people. We weren't angel investors ourselves. We were a product tech background, but saw this concept and thought, okay, we'll build a platform around that. Fast forward a few years, and what we were seeing with the crowdfunding side of it was, one, a lot of the companies that we wanted to work with didn't want to be on a platform for reasons of having to disclose information with a large number of people and having to manage very large volumes of individuals who invest small amounts. So we were getting pushback from these these companies on going on the platform. And we were very worried that would lead to missing out on the better investment opportunities because they didn't want to be on a platform. Then on the other side of it, what we were seeing was there were a lot of people who, while you have giant risk warnings and you tell them create a portfolio, don't just put everything into one company. Well, invariably they see something they really like, they go heavy on that one company, they don't build a portfolio, and you then tell them a year later or 2 years later that one company that they thought was great has actually failed. And because these are risky assets, you're not able to sell it at a lower valuation. These companies have been liquidated and you're getting nothing back from it. So on both sides of the table, we saw inefficiencies in having this platform. So we decided to evolve over time into running a fund. We wanted the fund to be in line with our initial ethos of co-investing with smart people. So we started to try and find out who these smart people actually were, not just saying, oh, they're an angel investor, they're smart. We wanted to be able to quantify who the best angel investors in the UK were. And we did that by spending a lot of time going through companies' house data, not manually. We built an API. We started to ingest the information from companies' house, taking into account any company that had filed a share raise, so CSO1 form, and then building the history of that company over time. So when they do a follow-on funding round or achieve some sort of exit or liquidation, marking that, and then going back and saying, okay, well, which angel investors have invested in these companies and those companies and that company over there, and trying to build a picture of the angel investors' investment portfolio. And long story short, after a lot of time building up this database, what we were able to see from it was a picture of which angel investors are outperforming the market. And from that group of angel investors, we started to build our AXIS EIS fund, which is this kind of passive co-investment venture capital fund that will invest when there's strong angels investing in a deal, who are investing how we would expect them to invest, i.e., we know that Sally invests in quantum mechanic companies at these valuations and usually puts in 100K per deal. So when Sally brings us a deal that's in quantum mechanics and she's investing 100K at those valuations, great, we'll co-invest with Sally into that deal. And we do that to the tune of about 50 investments per year.
Wow.
50, of course, it sounds like a lot of investments, but what
I
we found was that at 50. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I like the fact you invest in 50 because the thing with EIS, it is inherently risky, but the rewards can be high. But like you said, you've put your eggs in one basket in one EIS company, it's high risk. But the fact you got 50, some will fail, obviously, but you'll get some really great successes out of some of the others. So I quite like that. I think the spread of risk is what really attracted me to it. Plus the angel investors thinking, well, you've got experts who have got a proven track record that are investing in it as well as co-investors. And I just thought, wow, that's a great mix. Plus you got all the tax benefits of an EIS, 30% tax relief going in, free of capital gains tax when you sell it, outside your state for inheritance tax while you're invested in it. I think that's and also you can defer capital gains. I mean, it's a pretty good mix. I've always liked EIS tax reliefs, but I've always felt the downside has been the risk of a company failing. But this solves that issue in many ways. So that's what really appeals to me. Anyway, Tom, I want to ask you a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
What I find quite interesting, I always find this quite interesting about people who move to the UK. You come from what I consider a glamorous part of the world, Los Angeles, and you went to, what is a famous city, let's be honest, and it's got great history, but it's very cold and wet, Edinburgh in Scotland. And of all things, you're an American to be playing professional football. I mean...
Yeah,
I know there's a lot more. I know it's a very popular game in the US now, football, or as Americans call it, soccer. But it still doesn't. I don't think it reaches the height of the four main sports in America. But I think in terms of a sport that's actually played by ordinary people, I think football's overtaken all the other sports in America. Interestingly, but so what led to that? What made you come from Los Angeles to Edinburgh to a cold place with a lot of rain to play football? Why didn't you do something else like American football or baseball or something else?
Well, I grew up and I played all sports growing up. So I played baseball, basketball. I tried American football. I wasn't really cut out for it. It's too slight a frame. To be honest, I didn't like getting tackled that much.
Yeah,
but I always played soccer growing up. My dad was born in Edinburgh, and then he moved to the US. So we were a bit of the odd kids at school. Soccer wasn't terribly popular when we were playing. It was starting to slowly catch on, but we were the kids that would go to the park with a soccer ball as opposed to a basketball or a baseball. And so we were soccer daft, if you will, thanks to our dad being a big fan and playing growing up. So when we got a bit older, both my brother and I wanted to give it a go and see if we could make it in the UK. And he went over first. He ended up playing for Sheffield United under 18s and under 21s, and then he got injured, went back to the States, and realized that living life on a beach versus Sheffield was much better.
Of course.
So he's actually a coach now, of all things. He's a football or soccer coach.
And where does he coach?
He coaches a youth team in the US, a few youth teams, so kind of under 10s to under 16s.
Right. Nice.
And I came across a few years later, once I'd finished university, and had an opportunity to trial with a few teams, and Berwick Rangers were one of them. And they offered me a contract, so I ended up playing in the year that this was 2006. They won the third division.
Nice.
So I actually have a third division winners medal, although I was a bit part player, to be honest. But I got a medal and enjoyed it very much, and have some great memories of being with that team, and some wonderful personalities. So it was a good period of my time. Didn't pay very well, I'll be honest. No. And the weather was miserable, but it was so much fun. And it's something
Berwick
that I definitely...
Rangers, of course, is a famous club for a famous cup upset, I think, against Rangers many years ago.
Yeah, right? They did. They beat the Big Jers. They've also lost to them several times. But,
of course,
they did win one year. And I think the thing was with Shenfield Park, it holds about 3,000 people, 4,000 people. But whenever they play a big team, they have to have like riot police and horses mounted around it, and it gets a little bit rowdy as 4,000 fans can get. But it's definitely a good place on a good evening game.
No doubt. Scotland's absolutely a beautiful country. If you've been to the really beautiful parts of it, it's stunning. Scotland.
It is. LA is great weather-wise, but it's you've got the beaches. That's nice, but otherwise it's a pretty concrete jungle.
Yes.
And it was desert at one point, so it's rather warm, and you don't get the greenery that you do in Scotland. Scotland has some fantastic places, and I spent the whole first year, whenever I could, after on Sundays, because that was the only day we got free, I would go and see all the different lochs. I climbed all the big peaks, Ben Nevis and such.
Yeah. There's no end of them. There's no end. Yeah,
incredible, absolutely incredible.
It's an amazing country. I can see the beauty of it. It's fantastic.
Quite a shock, though. Quite cold.
Yes.
And more than anything, the darkness is something that you don't understand, having grown up in LA and showing up where you get up in the morning, you go to work at 8:30 and it's dark, and when you come out for lunch it's dark. It takes a toll. It really does.
It does. Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't miss that part of it, but
no, interesting. So moving on a little bit about yourself, you say you're here, you I don't know what this means, but you're a certified Prince 2 project manager and have experience with SQL. I presume this is all to do with programming. Are you a computer programmer qualified, or is it just something you've learned?
So when I was in Scotland, I got a job because the football didn't quite pay the bills. I got a job with a company called trainline.com.
Yeah, I know them. Yeah, it's an app.
And initially I was a project manager for Trainline, and they very kind paid for my professional development. So I got to do project management qualifications with Prince 2 and Agile. And then after a few years in Edinburgh, I was recruited to their head office in London to work on the product side of things. And product management involves a lot of software development and working with software teams. So I was fortunate again where I got to take a few courses and learn some basic programming skills.
That's good.
Bit of SQL, a bit of JavaScript, HTML, CSS. So I wouldn't say I'm a competent developer, but I understand what's going on, and I can debug some things, some of the simple things.
Yeah. So I can ask you, do you find these skills useful to you today to improve your general knowledge? Does it help you with your business?
Yeah, very much so. In two ways. One, when you're setting up a company, when you're founding a company, the more you can do yourself, the more you can keep costs down.
Yes.
But then working where we work, where we're investing in a lot of early tech businesses, it's nice to understand a bit more about what they're
Yes.
doing. Despite, our model is co-investing with angels who have a lot more experience in specific fields, I do like to take a look at what these companies are doing, and if I can understand it, great. Although, to be honest, technology changes so quickly that the skills that I learned 10, 11 years ago are, what was advanced then is simplistic now. And the languages people use have evolved so much that it's quite hard to keep up with
I'm
it all.
sure.
So
I'm sure.
oftentimes I'm sitting there and I'll get the basic concepts, but not much beyond that.
Tom, I noticed you're something known as a certified Sigma Green Belt. Now, is that something to do with programming, or is it martial arts?
Six Sigma is operations oriented, but they do use the different belts. So that was one from the business school, wanting to learn a bit more about how to keep costs minimal in businesses and the operation side of things. When I did my MBA, I took an eclectic mix of the electives. I didn't really focus on one particular type of business. I wanted to get a good understanding of everything. So I did ops and marketing and accounting and pretty much everything that I could. So I had a good general knowledge of what it took to run a business.
I do think it's useful to have wide knowledge. I think we live in an age of specialisms, but thinking of Edinburgh and some of the greats of Edinburgh, some of the great geniuses and the great breakthroughs they made that really helped the British Empire succeed, I feel that it's a bit sad that we're too specialist these days. I think it's really important to have wide knowledge, because the greatest geniuses in history were brilliant at many different things. They weren't just limited. And I think it's so important, don't you?
I agree. I mean, you need a bit of both, though. So
Sure.
you need some people who are specialists, and you need some people who are slightly more generalist. But you're right. If you look at a lot of the old Cambridge and Oxford and elsewhere academics, they weren't just physicists, or they weren't just focused on life sciences. They dabbled in almost everything. It was a curiosity that kind of led them to the discoveries that they made. And if you try to pigeonhole them into just one thing, I think they would have maybe not been as successful as they were. Not saying that I'm a genius and terribly curious and coming up with things, but I do like variety.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. And I definitely think it helps your overall knowledge if you got good general knowledge across the board. Even if it's something you're not dealing with day to day, it can help you. It's somehow like a puzzle. It gives you missing pieces that you wouldn't otherwise have. I think it just helps have a broader overall knowledge. If you look at someone like Elon Musk, for example, he seems to defy logic in the sense that he seems to have his finger in so many pies, but he's so intelligent. He's the sort of person who can cope.
Yeah,
with lots of these. He's a genius, isn't he? At the end of the day, with all these different.
Some might think of him as an evil genius.
Whether you like him or not, it's another issue.
Yeah,
of course.
No, exactly. He definitely has made advancements in several fields, although the technology itself isn't always him. It's just the spotting of the opportunity and how to capitalize on it that he's incredible at. So
yeah, true. Yeah, I mean, it's quite funny because I did once listen to a recording of the greatest geniuses in history. It was just it's subjective, of course, who it might be, but one of my favorites is Da Vinci, of course. And what's interesting about Da Vinci, he painted some of the world's greatest paintings, including the Mona Lisa. But the irony is that painting wasn't his thing. That was just a part-time hobby, really. He was an engineer first and foremost. Yeah. But he's painted the world's most famous and probably the most valuable painting in history.
Yeah.
And that's the mark of the man. These days, you wouldn't get someone who was an engineer and also an artist. They'd probably just be an engineer, Yeah.
So Da Vinci, I went to his museum, actually. Last Easter, we were in Italy and we went to Florence, and there's a whole side of him that doesn't get talked about a lot, with the engineering. And he actually was forced, depending who you believe, but forced to design engines of war and weapons and things, because at that point in time, Italy and Spain and Rome, and everyone was at war with each other. And so yeah, he was forced to kind of make these designs, and I mean, genius designs for the time. But also you wonder, okay, well, how does someone who creates something so beautiful, the Mona Lisa and all these paintings, then also create these weapons of, at the time, mass destruction?
Yes.
So
yeah,
it's definitely a genius in many accounts.
yeah, and also he could create designs that of items like helicopters hundreds of years in advance before that, and he even designed the specifics for the dimensions for a plane just by observing birds landing. And to today, apparently virtually the same dimensions are used, and this is just from my eyesight, without the benefit of computers. And I just find these geniuses in history just extraordinary.
Yeah. One random thing, I heard that he could draw a perfect circle without a compass. Which
Again, it's just incredible, these people.
Yeah, it sounds slightly bizarre, but I believe it. So I don't think I could do that. I don't even think mine would look.
Anyway, coming back on topic, I know you're very excited about another fund you've just launched recently, what's called a Seed EIS fund. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so to expand the business, we've been looking at introducing new products for a period of time, and obviously running an EIS fund. The SEIS tax reliefs are well known to us, although the companies are slightly earlier. So we set about looking out for partnerships, actually looking for groups that have expertise in certain fields to do kind of niche SEIS funds that have a focus on a specific sector or type of company. And the first one that we've just launched was with a group called Founders Factory, who are a London-based accelerator and scale-up firm. Founders Factory was started by Henry Lane Fox, Brent Hoberman, and a few others who were involved in lastminute.com. So when they exited out of lastminute.com, they decided they wanted to help companies scale up as they had done at Last Minute. And so the first fund that we did, which is closed right now, was with them. It's focused on B2B SaaS businesses, so B2B software as a service businesses at the pre-seed stage. The companies that will get money from that fund will go through a program that's run by Founders Factory, which is really cool. But it's not just a one-off for us. So we have a new fund that's likely to launch in November. Similarly, an SEIS fund, so Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme Fund, focused on climate tech businesses, so green renewables and such, with a group called Carbon 13.
Right.
And that one I'm really excited about because the green initiative is something that's important to me in trying to decarbonize the world, as grand as that sounds. But also they're a Cambridge-based group. So we've spent all this time where we've predominantly worked with people in London, unfortunately. Many of our angels are outside of it, but a good concentration is in London. And now we're getting to work with another group that's local to us, obviously very bright as well, connected to Cambridge. And they'll be helping 8 to 10 companies accelerate their climate tech-oriented businesses. And we'll be running the fund that backs that next cohort of companies. So very excited for that.
Yeah, and of course, CDIS is even more tax efficient than EIS in that the investor can receive 50% income tax relief on the investment. And there is, I think there might be a way of saving capital gains tax as well on CDIS. Yeah. But so it's quite interesting. Let's hope these tax breaks remain after the budget on the 30th of October. You're probably sitting there a bit nervous, are you?
No, actually,
Not really.
Knock on wood. So there was, about a month ago, the government extended the horizons for the Enterprise Investment Scheme, venture capital trusts, and SEIS scheme to 2035.
That's really good.
Yeah, initially they were going to end next year in 2025, but the new government, the Labour government that's come in, has said that they will push them back for 10 years. So I'm optimistic that the schemes will remain. May there be changes to the schemes? Who knows? I don't think they'll change it too much, in particular because the schemes have much more benefit than loss. So if you look at the tax relief that they give on the amount that goes into EIS is about 1.8 billion a year.
Yes.
30% of EIS, that's about 600 million a year in tax relief that they give.
Right.
but actually the job creation from these startups, the amount of that investment that goes to paying for services by these companies, and all the good that they do in advancing research and innovation, they'd be silly to cut it off for what is effectively a drop in the ocean of what they're trying to save. So I don't think there will be too many changes to the schemes.
I couldn't agree more. It's something they need to keep long term, not just for 10 years, because it's great for Britain. It's great for the economy. It's something you really want to keep long term. I can't see why you want to take it away. Wouldn't make any sense. Like you say, there'd be small amount of tax they'd save in the scheme of things. It would cost a lot more to close these schemes, I think.
It would. It would.
So that's interesting. So, Tom, moving forward, what are your goals in the next 5 years? And I don't just mean business related. Do you have any personal goal? Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Not just for your business, but in personal life as well.
Yeah, I'll start with the business side. That's easier. I love what I do. I love the fact that we're investing in anywhere between 50 and 70 startups a year. We're getting to be a part of their journey. And that's great. And we get to save people some tax as well, which is fantastic. So business-wise, I plan to still be where I am, but having developed more of these partnership funds, and who knows, VCTs are a big thing. At some point in time, we'll probably want a later stage fund that can back the portfolio at the next step. And a VCT or something along those lines is definitely of interest.
Yes.
We'll see how that goes. Personally, you know what? I've got a pretty good life, work-life balance in particular. I've got a youngish family who I get to spend time with and be flexible around them.
That's good.
We get to travel enough. I'd like to travel more. I'd like to see my family more. I've got family in the US, so I wish I could spend a little bit more time with them. But I mean, 5 years, it seems like a while, but it's actually pretty short. So if I'm doing what I'm doing, remain successful and healthy, that'll be a good thing. And if I can add in a bit more leisurely time and visit a few new places.
Do you see yourself ever retiring?
At some point. I mean, let's be honest, you've got a smile on your face right now, as I do. You enjoy what you do.
Oh, I love it. I don't ever want to retire.
Why change that? If you're enjoying it, you're covering your costs and you're getting to put some money away, then keep going until you don't feel like it anymore. So.
Yeah, I think you might come to a stage where you have to retire, but a lot of people who come on this show, including me, don't have any aspirations to ever retire because they, like you and I, they love what they do so much. It's like a hobby and you're getting paid to do what you love.
Exactly.
It's the best way to live your life, I feel.
I honestly, I couldn't agree more. If someone came and offered me triple my salary to work longer hours and such, I'm not sure I would take it.
No. Maybe what we both need to do. Maybe what we both need to do is just take a bit more holiday, and visit your loved ones more. I think
exactly. So if I can throw that in a bit more, then fantastic, and I do hope to do that soon.
So anyway, it's been a really fascinating interview. I really enjoyed it, and it's great to see someone who does what they love. You're doing a lot of good for the world. And I think you've got some fantastic investments here that are well worth considering. So I really appreciate the time you've given up today, Tom, and I'll be continuing to follow you and invest in your schemes.
Thank you, Tony.
So,
and for
any of
the people that you work with. Oh, sorry, I missed that.
Sorry, greatest luck for you for the future.
No, thank you very much. And I'll just say that anyone that that you work with, if they want to have a chat about EIS or SEIS, I'd happily have a one-to-one conversation. So
more than happy to refer them to you. More than happy, Tom.
No, thank you, Tony.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for joining us today. Please help us spread the word by sharing this podcast with your family and friends. And don't forget to subscribe.